The world is full of ordinary people just like you and me, who have actually done pretty extraordinary things. Things that you and I just look back on in awe, but we would walk past them on the street and not think a second that this person has led such an amazing life, all due to one thing. They've just backed themselves and they have become something that they are just great. My name's Kyl Reber, and this podcast is about just that. Ordinary people who are now showing us that it is possible for ordinary people like you and I to back themselves and become something amazing. So join me in listening to these people, listening to their stories, because who knows, one day I might be talking to you. All right, everyone. Hello and welcome to episode 5 of the Kyl Reber podcast. My name is Kyl Reber. This podcast is a journey, I guess, into the lives of what you would maybe think walking past them on the street as ordinary people who are, by sheer will, determination and backing themselves, now living quite unordinary lives and very extraordinary lives. And one thing is probably their humility, that they still don't think they are, and they're just a normal person. The guest I have today fits that mold very much. I've known this gentleman for a number of years now. I think it would be verging on the 10-year mark, maybe a little bit longer. He's got a very hard head. He's got a very strong will, and I enjoy spending a lot of time with him, often with a cold beer in hand, in all parts of the world. So without further ado, Matt Mellington, good morning and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Mr. Reber. A pleasure to be on it. Definitely very surprised and humbled for you to ask me. So we'll see how we go.
Oh, mate. And that is why, my friend, you fit the bill so much. So for those new to what we do, Matt or any of our guests get sent a series of, there's 10 questions. They get sent these questions a few days before, so they have time to think about them. Some of them are probably a little bit thought-provoking. Some of them might be quite easy, but we generally will stick to that plan. But yeah, be prepared always for a little bit of deviation. But the first question, birth to now in 7 minutes. 3, 2, 1, go.
All right. So I was born in a little town called Hopetoun, Victoria in 1971.
Jesus Christ, you are old.
I know, right? I still remember when I had to go and see Dr. Pete. He'd have the big cigar sitting behind the desk and come out smelling like you're at the pub all day. But yeah, but that's where I was born, and I was we're on a farm in Yarpeak, which is west of Hopetoun, and it's in between another place called Rainbow and Hopetoun. So we were there probably 71 till about 78-ish, roughly, and my dad decided to become a professional greyhound trainer, and we moved to Horsham in about that 78, 79 period. So we had about 50 greyhounds on the little farm we had in Horsham. And while he was off racing greyhounds, Mum was looking after all the other greyhounds, plus me and my younger brother. So, and then from there, for some reason, we moved to Apollo Bay. So we're in Apollo Bay.
How far is that from Horsham?
2 or 3 years. Apollo Bay would be probably 3.5, I reckon.
Okay.
Around 3.5 hours. Yeah. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, probably 3.5. Be around there somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So the old man, he was spraying blackberries down there on the side of the hills and dodging tiger snakes because it's well and truly tiger snake country down there. And then from there, we're only there, 2 or 3 years, as I said, and then we moved up to Oyen, which is 2 hours north of Horsham. So if you wanted to, if you want to sort of go to Melbourne from Oyen, you're looking at about 5.5 hours travel in your car.
Right.
So, yes, and then he started with like earth moving there. Ended up with a pretty big earth moving business. He built all the grain bunkers and that around at the time. Yeah, and then probably I can't remember when it was. They had him and the old girl had a bit of a split up, and we moved back to Horsham, and we were there for a little time, and then they decided to give it another crack, and then we moved back to Oyen, and I was probably back in Oyen until I left school in the end of '88, and that was a mutual agreement between myself and the teachers that I do not come back. I
What grade
was
were you
not
again?
one for school. Excel. Yeah, I did finished year 11.
Okay.
So yeah,
Was moving
I was that.
around like probably for you, like I said, early years, you spent only a couple of years in each place. Was that like looking back on that, was that hard to get any sort of consistency, good friends? Do you reckon maybe that was one reason why you didn't excel at school, other than just being a little turd, or like what was it, do you think?
I just, I it probably was a bit hard with friends, but I think it was probably more that I didn't like school, didn't like being told what to do all the time, even though we had a reasonably strict upbringing from my dad.
Hmm.
He was a Nasho, so spent time in Vietnam, so we definitely had that thing going. If you're not early, you're late sort of mentality, which still
Yep.
continues to this day. But look, I
Yeah.
excelled at PE, woodwork, metalwork, things that I love to do, but hated maths, hated English.
Yeah.
Some of the teachers were just absolute dicks. Yeah. So from there, when I left school,
Mutual
I moved
agreement.
back to mutual agreement. I moved to Horsham again for a few months, and I started a metalwork welding apprenticeship.
Okay.
But I lasted about 3 months there, and old mate sort of said it's time to move on. And the old man picked me up and he said, "You got two choices. You can either do what I'm doing or you can join the army." So I said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I'm shearing sheep, training greyhounds, trotters, and gallopers, and whatever else comes along the way."
Mm.
And I was always a bit keen on the army, but I decided I'll have a crack at doing what the old man was doing. So
Yeah.
I was there for about, I would have been there for 12 months with him, and we did clash a little bit, but I after my first sheep that I shore, I thought, the army's looking pretty good. Like we were getting up at 5 o'clock. We were getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, doing the greyhounds and the horses, and then we'd go off and shear. And he didn't really let me shear per se. I would be crutching sheep or rouseabouting. And then we'd get home, and then we'd have to do the dogs, do the greyhounds. Do the dogs, and the horses. And then we'd grind our gear ready for the next day, and you'd sort of be finishing up around, 9, 10 o'clock at night. And good to go again. So that was sort of my life. I also picked up a bit of work with an engineering fella in Rainbow, welding and fixing up header concaves and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then, I decided I'm going to move back to Oyen. So I moved back to Oyen and pretty well stayed there. So what was I? I was 17, about would have spent 17 to 18 there, about 18 and a half, and then moved back to Horsham, and and then I was shearing sheep. Shearing season had finished. There was some work going at the Grain Elevators Board at the time, and they give me 2 weeks' work, and I ended up spending 17 years there.
You do.
Yeah, and in between there, I sort of got my truck license and did a bit of truck driving for a local friend, and got my security license there as well. Did a little bit of security up there, but not a lot. Just the local pub, sort of, nothing hectic.
Yeah.
Especially in Oyen, like 1,600 people, so it wasn't off its head. And then in the grain job, I become a safety rep, like that. Did my study, so I travelled to Mildura for 2 years at night time. So I'd work and then travel up, and I'd get home, I think it was twice a week. And I'd get home, finish work and get home about 11:30, 12 o'clock at night. And then got my diploma.
This is the thing with you.
Applied for.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is the thing with you. You've always, ever since I first met you, like where we usually meet, like in Somerville, where we train a lot in Victoria, you'll drive from Horsham to there. So that's 3 odd hours. Is that right?
Yeah, 4 hours. Yep.
What's another hour? But you've always seemed like you've been used to that travel philosophy, up late, start early. Is that just something now, like we were talking off air about, how we both need to sometimes just stop and slow down? That's just part of you now. That's just how you do it.
Yeah, I think it was just ingrained in me from the old man, really. Like he worked hard and played pretty hard too. So, but yeah, you got to put the hard yards in to get what you want. So, yeah. So I don't think I really know any different. That's just the way it's been. Like on the grain job, we'd spend probably 2 to 3 weeks where you're doing 100-hour weeks, really. And I was
crazy.
Like living off 3 or 4 hours sleep a night, especially when I was.
And you're operating machinery and doing all that sort of stuff too, aren't you?
Yeah. I was managing the Oyen side at that time, so. There's other times where I was driving the truck and that as well, where you might alter the logbook, so to speak, just to make sure everything's kosher.
Correct. Enough said.
I think it's part of these days to do that. I'm sure it's still away. But, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, in 2007, I applied for a job at the hospital in Horsham, and I got it, and here I am today. So,
And what's your role at the hospital now?
Yes. So it's changed. We've just merged with Ballarat, which has probably come on 2 years now. So we're Grampians Health Service now, and I manage Stawell, Horsham, Dimboola, and Edenhope. So that's out to the South Australian border, nearly. I manage safety and security. So, yeah.
And how many? So that's a full-time gig for you.
Yeah, part-time now. I've been part-time Monday to Thursday for 2 or 3 years, maybe 3 years.
Okay. Because obviously a big part that we still need to discuss is how we met with martial arts. So when and how and who did that come into your life?
Probably Apollo Bay. I remember going to the local police youth services club and doing boxing. So maybe it's probably 9-ish, somewhere around there.
Because you played a lot of footy as a kid, yeah.
Yeah, football all the way through. I played my last game of footy when I was 45. So
AFL or
probably
rugby
much
league?
to my wife's
AFL?
AFL. Yeah. Aerial ping pong, you blokes.
Yeah, mate, I'm still trying to fucking figure it out. But was the boxing, and it's always interesting to see what the motivators are to start. Was that something, like you said, your old man was in the military, or that was there something there that, was that a motivator, or you just enjoyed the concept, or you thought it was a good backup for the footy, or I just want to see what this does, or what was the motivator?
Probably. We probably grew up around pretty sort of. Well, they were pretty violent times, I suppose, back in those days. But our mum said that the old man come back different from Vietnam, and I can't remember many times where we didn't, if we were with him at the pub or something, we didn't see a fight. Either we seen a fight or he was in it. So I think that was probably a factor that I wanted to learn how to fight as well. But with no real concept of it really, but I always had a leaning in towards that sort of thing. I remember watching Bruce Lee on telly, and all that sort of thing. So when we moved to Oyen, there wasn't really anything there, but there was a high school teacher that come, and we started. He was a Kempo instructor, so I did Kempo for 2 or 3 years while he was there. And that was the same as Zendo Kai back in the day. It was no kids classes or anything. It was you train with the adults. So that's what we did. And then, I didn't do anything for a little while once he left. And in my 20s, I started Taekwondo and did that for nearly 3 years. And then had a bit of a hiatus on that until I moved to Horsham, and then I found Zendo Kai. So I started training at the local
What
place
is it
here.
that you found with Zendo Kai? Because we both do Zendo Kai. What is it you found with that made you stick with it?
I think the freestyle and the ability to use different styles in our style.
Yep.
So we've got that heavy Thai influence as well. Now we're starting to see the BJJ come into it as well, which is good. So,
and the Filipino stuff is something you've latched onto as well.
Yeah, yep. So I've been doing that since about, I think, 2017 is when I threw myself in the deep end and went on a trip to Thailand to Philippines with Mark Desant. And just that blew me away. I just went, what the hell is this? I was discombobulated, every day. Had no idea where the hell I was going with it, and it's just something that I've stuck at. To try and
that's awesome.
Some form of.
And now you run a full-time club in Horsham, Hammer.
Yep.
Horsham Allied Martial Arts. How long's that been going for?
Yep. I think we must be 6 coming into 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
I originally I started off, I did the Krav Maga instructors course, or, learning to teach it how we do in BJC. And I thought, well, I'll start teaching it in Horsham. So I kept it separate to my Zendo Kai instructors. Zendo Kai. I didn't want to sort of intrude on that. And that was ticking along okay. And then I probably decided to go on my own path with my martial arts, and then about 7 years ago roughly I decided to start the full complement of Hammer, where I started to teach. Just started off teaching kids karate and Zendo Kai, and I had a little space out the back where I am now, because it was a fitness place, and he rented space to me, and I was going to be happy with sort of 25 students. So now, pre-COVID, I was around 175, but I'm back down around 140 now.
Okay.
It's slowly growing again. We're slowly picking it up from where it was, but
because what's Horsham's population?
Now, so, about 20,000. Yeah.
So a town of 20,000, which is similar to the size of the town I grew up in, having a club of 140 students, that's not bad, is it? So, I mean, that really makes it that. I said, having a club of 140 students in a town of 20,000, that's not bad. Like you're still doing okay.
Yeah. Oh, look, I'm still aiming for. My end goal is to do this full time and not work at the hospital.
Yeah.
I sort of haven't made that a secret. But I sort of need, if I'm going to do that, I need to be up around the 200. But that's not why I do it. But I need the income if I'm going to not work at the hospital.
Oh.
So, like currently, I work 100%. At the hospital, so 7 to 3:30, and then I go home. Yeah, I quickly get changed, and then I get down to the dojo about 4 o'clock, and then I don't leave here till 8:30 at night. So,
how good is that life? How good is that?
the 4.5 hours here, mate, goes like that. goes in an instant, but
Yeah.
the 8 hours at work kills me.
It's it's a do you live to work or do you work to live?
Yeah, that's right. Well,
The final thing before we jump on to question 2, we've left out a very important factor. Let's talk about your beautiful wife and your children. What's happening there?
So I've got well, obviously
Hi, Haley,
Haley.
by the way,
So
love
she's
you.
a hairdresser, and yeah, she's the rock. Definitely couldn't do anything. Football, the whole works. She's always sort of been there. So there's time when I played up in the Mildura League with footy. So I was, three nights a week I'd be, or 2 nights of training up there, and then playing footy up there as well. She had a couple of young kids around the ankles, and she'd just follow me around, supporting us. So,
where did you and Haley meet? How did that come together?
We met at school.
Which the one you got asked to leave?
The one I got asked. One we had a mutual agreement. Yep.
I love the way you put that. That's just your way of saying they said piss off.
Yeah. I fucking don't like you. You don't like me. Let's move on.
It's quite simple.
Yeah. She chased me, believe it or not.
God,
so,
you're right. I'm going with the or not.
What happened was when she left school at quite a young age too, but she went and did a hairdressing course in Melbourne. So she lived in Melbourne for probably 12 months or so.
Yeah, right.
I'm guessing that might have even been when I was in Rainbow, I think. So, yeah, and then she come back to Ogan and she started her own hairdressing business there. And she's been in the game ever since. But we were on and off, for a fair bit. It's probably more my doing than anything. Just, yeah. But anyway, we ended up
takes a great man to admit that, mate.
I think 95 we got married, and then had Keegan. He's in Ballarat now. He's 27. Be 28 this year. Erin's only just got married. She's 26, and Zali's 17, and she's in about a week and a half. We're shipping her off to Adelaide. She's going to do a beauty course over in Adelaide, which will be 12 months. So we'll have an empty nest, and then
how's that going to roll out, do you reckon?
It's going to be interesting, mate. It's definitely a new for me, I think. It's going to be it's definitely a new chapter in the life, and, Haley's probably had the kids to keep it entertained and chat and all that sort of stuff while I've been selfish doing my own thing, and now I'm really going to have to work on that stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's like we've discussed a few times now between us. It's that spreading out of the time, isn't it? We forget how much just our kids being around can buffer the time that we're not there.
Yeah, sure.
Well, that's interesting, sir.
Yeah.
That's So
That's the three.
it's funny. I think you like the thing I got the most out of that chat is I think you've probably had a much more interesting childhood than you probably give yourself credit for. Like I didn't know how much you moved around as a kid. And like you said, also to have a father who was a Vietnam vet, and back in that day in the late 60s and early 70s, things like PTSD and all that trauma experienced. I remember, and this is going back to my grandfather who was in World War II, the best they could come up with was he just was shell shocked. You know, like he lost an arm in the war. You can't expect him to just come back and carry on like nothing ever happened. So I think even that would have put a very interesting variable on growing up as compared to somebody who didn't have that.
Yeah, like they, I sort of didn't really realise what. I just knew he was in the army.
How old were you when he went to war?
I wasn't even born, mate.
Well, there you go. So it's kind of all you've ever known, is it?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, that's right. So 69, he was in Vietnam. He was 152 SIGs, which is attached to the SAS. So he was beret qualified, and so he was on the sort of 5-man patrols out in the boonies with. He was with 3 Sabre Squadron at the time, so. So he had they had do the Morse code, they had to do X amount of words a minute or some bloody thing to get into that, and then probably while you're trying to set stuff up out in the scrub while someone's shooting at you could be interesting as well, I suppose. So I sort of didn't realise, what he did until later on in life a little bit. Yeah.
And I think that's the thing, isn't it? Like I see how, I guess, patriotic you are, and at like times like Anzac Day and that, how patriotic you are to your father. So it's very interesting that, it was the same. Like for me with my grandfather, I didn't take stock of everything he must have gone through because I just wasn't old enough for it to compute. And now, you know, you must sort of see that and go, God, the amount of, how long was he over there for? Did you do one tour?
Just the one tour, but I was getting into the podcast and stuff like that, and I was listening to this Nick Howard is his name, and he was a team leader, and he's talking about these things, and then they have a picture up of him hanging off a rope in a hot extraction. So back then, if the SAS got into trouble, they'd shoot and scoot, get out, and then they'd drop the ropes and they'd do a rope extraction, and then they're skipping along the top of the tree canopies and all that sort of thing until they could get back in the helicopter. But I was talking to the old man about him, and he goes, "Yeah, I know him," and he must have looked at him and looked it up, and then he rang me back. He goes, "You know who took that picture, didn't you?" I said, "Nah." He goes, "I did." I said, "What?" I said, firstly, that's awesome. Secondly,
what the fuck?
What the fuck made you decide to take a picture during a hot extraction? He goes, "Oh, what else are you going to do?" So yeah, it was a bit of a spin out then. So I'm trying to get him. I want him to do a podcast with that was Life on the Line. I think that podcast was. So I'd like him to do it, but he's very sort of a little bit reluctant, I think, to, like all vets are.
Yeah,
most vets.
I guess you can understand why, but it's like that thing, isn't it? it's sharing that experience for others. And again, especially in a war like Vietnam where there were so many people opposed, you know, there's also those people that were over there having to do this stuff, whether you're opposed to it or not. And they've got a story too.
Yeah, that's right. So, you know, and I'd like to know more about, and he's opening up a little bit more, not so much about the war, but, you know, he was a light heavyweight boxing champion while he was in there, and he was pretty good at running as well, and all that sort of thing. So, it'd be good to know a bit more about the lighter side of it, so to speak. So he went in and never drank. Apparently he didn't drink before he went into the army.
I shouldn't laugh about that. But then you can understand, like, that was that form of coping mechanism, I guess, wasn't it?
Yeah. So anyway,
all right.
that's sort of
I think there's a lot there, and I want to probably a couple of ideas I have straight away there. But I'm always, it's always interesting, and you can see, you know, I've never met your father, but after that, I've got a firm picture in my head, and I reckon there would be a lot of likeness between you and your father, just in the way you take life on. Is there a little bit? You and your brother, are you the same, or are you a bit different, or you agree and disagree, or?
We agree and disagree. But probably because we're similar, I think. He's a bit bigger. He's a bit bigger than me. He's nearly 6'3", I think, 6'2", somewhere around there. But we've both sort of had that. Don't take any bullshit sort of attitude to anything, and it might have ended up getting us into more trouble than not on a weekend or whatever. But he's very similar, I think, and that's probably why we do butt heads.
And I think if you hadn't had those, if you hadn't had that sort of upbringing, you arguably wouldn't be where you are, because, you know, the not take no for an answer, the late nights, early mornings, clearly that's something that you've been able to use in your favour for things like hammer and, you know, getting to where you want. Because again, you're that guy that is always at everything. And like, I have conversations with my students when they want to drive more than an hour to something. Yet you grew up in a similar culture to me, where down the road can be anywhere from 1 to 4 hours. Like if you had to drive 10 minutes to something, you'd feel almost cheated, wouldn't you?
Oh, yeah, luxury.
You can never walk there. You must clock up some awesome miles in the car, mate. That's for sure.
Yeah, COVID was obviously we were a bit quiet there for a while, but I'm starting to rack up again now.
That would be something I want to talk about later on, because that would have been a big thing for you. But let's move on to question number 2. 3 reasons you get out of bed every morning.
1, I know I'm alive. 2,
check,
is definitely my family. And I think the third one is just martial arts, I think.
What would life be, especially without number 2 and number 3? So what if you weren't doing martial arts? What do you think? You know, I say this to a lot of people, parallel universe. If you weren't doing martial arts, what do you reckon you would be doing? Or what would be different? How would life be?
I would find something like, I would find something that would challenge me, and I'd definitely get into it. I think, like, I was in the SES for 10 years, state emergency service up in Oyen.
Yeah.
You know, I've done the abseiling and shit, which sort of freaked me out, but it was that pushing your sort of limits. I've probably seen some horrific motor vehicle accidents, and having to search for a fella out in the scrub once, 40 degrees, and we found him. He was deceased, but that wasn't good. So, there was I think I would have done something. If I didn't have the martial arts, I'd find something that would get me thinking and sort of, in that uncomfortable zone type of thing, I think.
Do you think, because the observation I have with you is, like, obviously when you started martial arts, you're similar to me. It was, you want to train, you want to learn, and you're still, like I said, you're at everything. You have no problem, like you said, with the abseiling. You have no problem making yourself uncomfortable and doing the uncomfortable. You're one of those guys that's always at the seminars and the training days. And when we've been to Thailand, I think we've been to Thailand together 3 times or so, something like that. But now you seem very focused on wanting to help and wanting to give back. Like, you're involved with a lot of boards, you're involved with coaching, you're involved with mentoring. You are that guy who seems to be so willing to help others. Is that more the direction for you with martial arts now?
Yeah, I think so. And I found it in football as well. I ended up coaching the under-16 side for a couple of years, and I coached the senior side for 2 years as well. So I think it's just that wanting to help people be the best that they can be. And if I can impart any of my wrongdoings and don't do that, then you'll get better.
Because with all due respect, experience has been a great teacher to you.
The only way I've learnt, mate, I'm not one for reading. I'm not one for reading the book and going, "Oh yeah." It's
if you want to learn how to do it wrong, just ask.
Yeah, shit goes wrong, and I'll go, okay, I won't do that again. You ask Kaylee how many times that how many times I've survived life. It's been a few.
You're a cat. Could you imagine? So on number 2, on family, could you imagine? Do you how am I putting this? Like you said, like with your final one, your youngest moving out of home soon. Do you think you would be where you were? And again, we can get complacent and just assume it's always going to be there, but just the support of your family in what you do. Do you think you definitely wouldn't be where you were without that? Like, again, those times where you just weren't around, you miss out on things, and we've both been there. Is that something that you sort of, and I know I do every now and then, take for granted?
Oh, without a doubt. I don't. Yeah, I'd probably, if they weren't here, I think I'd just be like a nomad. I think I'd just be training martial arts somewhere, and just I've but they've sort of grounded me, and I was a bit loose back in the day, so Haley's definitely the one that steered me in the right direction. And then having the kids, as I've had to grow up a bit with them too, I suppose. And I think I've definitely gotten better as we got to number 3. So, yeah. because I was only 20.
I'm learning as I
think I
go.
was 25 when. Yeah, I
I
think
was going to
I
say
was
that. How old were
25
you
when
when
we
you
had
had Keegan?
Yeah, 25, and yeah, I was still doing all the shit that I shouldn't have been doing, like, but that was probably some of that. There was that upbringing too. I didn't know any different, so I
That's
had
just all
to
you knew.
take stock. Yeah, I had to take stock in the end, and through the old man and Veteran Affairs, I went and seen a psychologist just to try and work out why I was doing what I was doing, like, all that stuff that you probably do as a teenager. I was still doing it in my late 20s. I shouldn't have been doing it. So yeah.
Do you look back now? Well, Keegan's a similar age now. Do you sort of like there would be a difference between you and him and how you're behaving at those ages? But is this more an age as opposed to him being a child where you now, like with that in mind, you go, please don't fucking do that. Like just stop that.
There's big differences. Like, yeah, and again, it's a different time now as well. Like, you couldn't do what we used to do. There's too many ramifications now. And back, if we got in a fight, it was generally a punch up. It wasn't a weapon involved or anything like that. Keegan told me a story not that long ago. One of his mates, they were walking along the street in Ballarat, and one of them yelled out to a car. The car turned back around, and they had balaclavas on, and they pulled out a big Bowie knife. Like, that stuff wasn't really heard of back in our days. It was if you got in the punch up, you generally got in the punch up, and then you were drinking a beer with the dude after it. Like,
We lost a little bit there, but one thing I think I was going to say is I noticed, I think it was on the weekend, there was like this guy in Melbourne that transversed like 4 different suburbs just doing random knife attacks. So I don't know if you saw that on the news, but I mean, that was
like he was
like that. And you're right. When we were kids, maybe it did happen, but it just wasn't making the news. Like we were like, that's a thing that I think about, and you would have the same with your children, the experience you've had, the experience I've had. My eldest is 17 this year, and that the topics of schoolies are getting discussed and moving out of home, and it's for me, it's similar to you. The first things that are crossing my mind are not necessarily things like what sort of furniture are you going to get or toaster or everything. It's like, fuck, where are you going to live that's safe? Where can you do this? What's going to happen here? They're big things for me that I think about.
Yeah,
and
make
without
sure you get
playing
in
on your head.
And make sure you know.
Oh. And for
sure
you with Sally, that'd be something you'd be thinking about. Oh. Yeah, 100%.
Absolutely. Making sure you're aware.
And again, like you said, it's just a different world. But yeah, that's it's interesting. And again, mate, total credit to you for being that age in that era, admitting that you needed to go somewhere and speak to someone, because conversations we've had in the past, there's still so many men that aren't willing to do that, literally through probably fear and judgment.
And I probably didn't until I was like in about 30 or so, mate, either. Like, it wasn't in me in my 20s when I decided to do that. It was probably I was just starting to turn a page and decided I needed to change.
That's good, man. All right, number 3, 2 guilty pleasures that you have.
Well, I love good Japanese whiskey. So I like that.
A lot.
I'm weaning myself off it a bit though. I'm weaning myself
Smoorish.
off it. I think I got to. Yeah, it is. So, and I probably don't mind any sort of good thriller. I like to sit down and watch. But as I said, the British ones seem to be pretty good of late. So I've been getting into a fair few of those.
Do you have like the bowl of popcorn, mate, beside you? And like, do you watch half of it like me with your hand across your face, but you can't turn it off? Because that's me and that stuff.
No, generally like maybe a stubby and going, what the fuck? Like,
I did not expect that.
Yeah. Oh, I've got to go back to square one again because I thought it was this person. Now it's not. So,
I always think back to you've seen The Usual Suspects?
Yes.
With yeah. Kaiser fucking Soze. That was that always gets me. You know, I can't believe it was that guy of all the people. One thing to discuss, Japanese, just going back to Japanese whiskey, from a guy who loves his whiskey too. Why the Japanese stuff over the Scottish or Irish or even American whiskey? What makes it better?
I just think it's a bit smoother, not as harsh. There are some nice Scottish ones. But I tend to lean to the Japanese ones a bit more because they're not as harsh. I just like that sort of mellow texture. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Although some of the one I really like, the price has gone up too much, so I don't buy that anymore.
That's the thing, isn't it? They're nice, but yeah, these days, same as you, mate. It's very much a celebratory thing, or just one here and one there. But we all need that sort of guilty pleasure. You won't find whiskies like that in Thailand, mate. They don't put as much love and care into those.
No, you don't find them in Thailand or in Philippines either.
Oh no, I would argue Philippines is worse. Let's go. Let's go. Question 4. One thing that you bought, which is one thing you bought that has literally made you happy every day after.
Well, I did buy 2 things in COVID lockdown, which was my smoker. I bought the smoker.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I bought the old cocktail table arcade game, like with 3,500 games on it. So like, I don't play it all the time, but when I get on it, I like, you're playing Wonder Boy or bloody something like that. I got there's Tekken and all that sort of thing on it.
Because these days you get like little programs and it's got like 50 odd games or something on it, doesn't it? Something like that.
Well, this thing's got 3,500 games on it.
Oh, jeez.
But what I've found is like it'll have the Japanese version, and which so really there's probably 200 odd, 300 games. But yeah, some of the games that I thought, well, I used to be pretty good at, I'm shit at it now.
I was a lot better at this when I was 16. But that was the thing, wasn't it?
Probably 'cause
You'd go down, I remember the fish and chip shop near home. You go down, order your burger or your fish and chips, and it's 20 cents a go at the time. And then you're like, put $1 worth in there. That was usually more than the bloody feed half the time, but
yeah, that's right. And we even got a bit ingenious, and we'd drill a hole in the 20-cent bit with a bit of fishing line on it. And you used to drop it down, and you just get it on the bloody tilder, and you just keep going dit 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 dit.
Is this where your excelling at manual arts came into handy, mate? Or
Yeah, probably, yeah. Being rebellious, I suppose. But
I'd like to use the word industrious, Matthew. Industrious. On the smoker. Yep. Favorite meat to smoke.
Definitely like doing a good brisket.
Yep.
Although the other day I don't mind doing the like a good ribeye on the bone.
Yep.
It's pretty good. For Christmas I did it was a ham off the bone, but full of glaze. That did it in the smoker, and also did some jalapeno poppers, but they had like a prawn in them. So yeah, they were.
Stop it.
They were really good. And the tails were just like the old prawn cracker, so you didn't have to piff the tails away. They were freaking good.
How do you go with it? Because when you put a brisket in, how long a time do you need for it? There's like 8 to 12 hours or something, aren't
they? Yeah, generally sort of like the anything above 10 hours. You can do them a bit quicker, but you mightn't get that fat rendered down. I haven't played with it that much. I like to, low and slow and just get it going. If you get that brisket right, it's pretty bloody good.
And by the time, do you sit and wait for it, or by the time you've done that, you're 3 sheets to the wind because you've been having beers all the time you're waiting for it?
No, well, I might get up like 5 o'clock and 5 o'clock in the morning and start it, and then you've got it for that night. But I try to hang back till probably about 3 o'clock or something before you have a beer with it. So.
It's an occasion, mate. It's an
otherwise
occasion.
You wouldn't shit. Yeah, exactly.
It could taste like anything by then. Question 5. One thing everyone thought you were crazy doing, but you did it anyway, and it paid off. I reckon you've got more than one of these, Mr. Mellington.
Oh, I probably have, but I think the big one, there's probably 2 big ones. One was starting Hammer.
Yeah.
But before that was moving back to Horsham in 2007. So sort of, I did the first 12 months, 2007 to 2008 by myself. And Hayley had her business and all that back in Oyen. We were nearly signing on the dotted line to build a house out in the block of ground we had, which had 17 acres on it. And I just sort of commuted for 12 months. I was at Hayley's cousin's for a little while, and then I lived in one of the doctor's flats at the hospital. Paid $50 a week there, which was pretty good. But I think that sort of after the 12 months decided, this is what we're going to do, and picking up the family because we had all 3 were on deck then. So but Zali was only only like 1 year old, not even, and yeah, it was pretty. It was a pretty big move doing that, I think. I'm sure there's some people who didn't even talk to me and just thought I was fucking mad. But anyway,
Why do you
I
reckon?
wouldn't change
I mean,
it.
like, again, we always talk about those people that, you know, haters are going to hate. But it's funny, isn't it? Like, the move doesn't affect them, does it? Didn't make any difference
No,
to their life.
that's right. Whether they don't want to see other people succeed or something. I don't know. I don't really know, mate.
And it's funny, isn't it? Like you said, you've did that and you haven't looked back.
Yeah, like it's created more opportunities for the kids. Keegan got to play VFL football, which was the tier below the big league. So, but he blew both knees out, which is no good. But yeah, I don't think it would have been harder for him to have those opportunities in Oyen. I'm not knocking Oyen or anything. It's just the tyranny of distance where they are. It's just a bit harder. More opportunities probably present the closer you are to Melbourne, I think.
It just didn't suit your needs, did it? What was the other thing? So Hammer. What were the things with Hammer that I guess people were saying, or?
Yeah, I think it was just leaving the instructor I was with and starting another club in Horsham.
Yeah.
I know that didn't go down too well with my old instructor, but I had, I probably just had, like, it's another commitment, so it was probably not so much people from the martial arts fraternity, it was probably more people from outside, and you're starting, it's another commitment.
Yeah,
you've got to be in it for the long haul. So
the people who don't understand are the ones who'll give the most feedback, aren't they?
Yeah. So, but I was up for the challenge, and I'm still learning. Just trying to make things better all the time. Which is probably why I travel and train, so I can evolve, so I can pass that on to my students.
It's probably a thing off topic, but the travel and train, you're a massive advocate of that because you do travel and train so much. Not to, pigeonhole anyone, but do you see a difference in the instructors that don't travel and train compared to the people who don't? I guess this is in any workforce too. Like in your part-time, your job at the hospital, those people who aren't willing to maybe do those extra courses or do that stuff, they just stay at a certain level, don't they? But do you see that a lot in martial arts? Because you're exposed to like the different styles, and you'd see people who are at 1 gig a year as opposed to 2 or 3. And there's always going to be variables as to why they can't get to that much stuff. But you would see now the difference in those people that do go to other stuff compared to those that don't, or don't as much.
Yeah, I think so. And and some of them maybe it's just that they don't want to be exposed, so to speak, for something that they may not be so good at. I couldn't give a shit, really. Like, if I'm not good at it, I go, right, well,
teach me.
I want to learn. That's why I started jiu-jitsu, because again, at the wrong age of of doing something new, even though I've sort of dabbled in it for about 7 or 8 years. Probably about 8 years I dabbled in it, but it wasn't really. It was 2019 that I really started taking it serious. So where we had an instructor or a coach that wanted to teach classes out of Hammer, and he rents some space off me, and I get to train as well, so which is good. But that's a component that I found that I needed to improve, and that's led also to me. Even though I've been doing the kinetic since 2015, that's another thing where I wanted to improve as well with the combatives, and I want to be able to, and is that going to be a career changer for me? Probably not, but I want to go as far as I can go with that, because there's opportunities to help the military and other people. Like I run a weekly course here with the kinetic, and I'll get coppers and nurses and that'll come in, and we'll work on stuff that they want to work on to help them be safer at work. So that's I want to be able to do that and help them. So,
and I think, do you think that has also rubbed off on your students? Like, you always seem to have, like, and again, you're not a big club, you're in a country town, but you've always got people with you at events and that sort of thing. So that attitude is definitely flowing downhill, and that's a good thing to have, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. A couple of my mainstays have been a bit busy with their businesses and that, and I totally understand that. Like, you can't do everything all of the time, but if they can't do it, I'm going to make sure that I can, so I can bring it back and help them. So, that's why. Yeah, it's good if I can get them to come with me. We can have a good time while we do it as well. But
that's true.
I'll come back and I want them to learn from what I'm doing as well. So, in a sense,
funny,
it's all about me, but I'm not. It's about passing it back to them guys.
Well,
so.
It's the same thing I say to people here, and like whoever's running a club. At the end of the day, you are the face of it. Like, you are the club, and if you're doing it, then that's what people assume is the regular behaviour. If you're being a dickhead, and if you're not being a good person, then they're the people you're going to attract. If you're a person who's willing to do new things, you're keeping on the straight and narrow, you're doing everything that you're meant to do and you should do, then they're the people you attract.
Yeah, and we're a big one at Hammer that we don't want dickheads. You'll get told to straighten up pretty quick or piss off. So we want people to learn, but do it in a safe environment as well. So yeah,
100%.
Want a good culture at the club, mate, for sure.
And that's the biggest thing. You can not be the best martial arts club technically, but if you've got a good culture and a good community, the rest will fall into place. Good people first.
I want to, we'll touch on it a little bit later in question 8, I think. So,
excellent.
This year I want to get back on track. So,
no, that's good, man. Let's go question 6. 4 things you cannot live without, animate or inanimate.
This is another hard one too, mate. I think I only had 2.
That's why I said them, mate. You got to think about them.
That's why I left a gap I left the gap so I'd come back to it. I never come back to it.
You left on purpose.
Shit. We've already touched on it. Family.
Yep.
Martial arts. I think I'd be lost without it. It definitely helps me de-stress and resets myself. Like, I'll have the shittiest day at work and I'll come down here and forget about the whole lot. Yes, I might be worn out, but I've forgotten about work, and we're doing martial arts, so it's like, that's I'd be lost without it, I think.
Yep.
Then I'd probably have to say a car, because if I didn't have the car, well, then I wouldn't be able to get to where I needed to get to. So
that's a very practical, grown-up answer, Matthew. It's true.
I know, right? I
Very
might be
true.
starting to mature.
Fucking better late than never.
I would. Yeah, I know, right? I'd still love to see dates and shit around though, like these fucking electric car bullshit. Like,
I don't think, Matt Mellington, I can ever even begin to picture you in a Tesla, mate. I just don't think that will ever be you.
Wouldn't be able to get in the thing for a fucking start. But yeah, they bang on about these electric cars, but what are they doing to make them? Fair dinkum.
Hurts your head.
It blows my mind away.
Number 4?
And I'm going to say a fan. I've got to have a fan in my room. A fan. Not a can, a fan. A fan,
okay.
A fan in my room. It doesn't matter if it's winter or summer. I've got to have that fan going. And
really?
Yeah. It's
a thing.
It must just help me go to sleep. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's a
that
thing,
little bit of white noise.
That might be my security thing.
We all need it. We all need it. Oh well.
Exactly.
That's why in Thailand you're always wanting to sit close to the fan, mate. Is that why? Or?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Or just because it's fucking really hot.
Close to the bar.
They were 4 very interesting choices. Like the family, martial arts, yes, but no one has said a car, and that's a very practical answer. Very practical answer.
Well,
my thing I've learned the most from that is I'm going to try and get you in a Tesla. Hey?
I've had to walk some good distances before, and fuck that, mate. Like, get in a car, it's a lot quicker.
All right, question 7. I think we've touched on this already, but let's have a better chat. If you weren't doing what you were doing in life right now, what do you think you would be doing? What would have been option number 2? What would you be doing?
I would never change. Well, there's a couple of little things I would change now, but look, if we went back and had to reset as a 17-year-old, I think I would have probably would have joined the army. I think army or police. I was keen on the police for a little while at school, and then there was one of these dickhead teachers that sort of said you'd be no good as a copper, which was probably right. I'd probably ended up getting done for corruption or some bloody thing like that, or belting somebody, or
excessive use of force.
Excessive use of force, that's right. I got touched up by a couple of coppers when I was a young bloke. I probably deserved them, but I would probably lean more towards the military, probably army, and that was just because I always had that sort of interest in it, and it's probably more from Mick, the old man, being in the army. So
Mm. Do you I know I think about this a lot and almost the irony in it. Like we both played up when we were younger, and I think I had that thing like you about joining the police and that sort of thing. Do you find it ironic now that with all you've done when you were younger and playing up and finding your way, as we might put it, now you're training police, you're training military, you're involved with all that stuff? I always find that a little bit ironic how it's come that full circle that now we're involved with our backgrounds in that. Maybe that's what actually helped us as well.
yeah, I think so. When I think about it now, you can sort of think about a bit of the what ifs, but yeah, I've only trained with the military once, and that was when I did my first instructor's course at Enoggera with the kinetic. So I did my Army Combatives program level 1. But yeah, I want to progress on that so I can assist the combative master trainers and that when they go and train somebody. So yeah, that's something I haven't done a lot. I've trained with some of the guys, but yeah, never actually sort of been to a full-blown program where we've gone through some of the KEF stuff or whatever. So that's something I want to do more of. But yeah, I definitely, we've got a couple of veterans here that train in the jiu-jitsu and that, which is good. I reckon that's a good outlet for them, and yeah, just good with the coppers, helping them out because their standard package is, safety's probably got a lot to play in that they can't do what they need to do, so they need to outsource what.
They do,
training.
and no disrespect to any governing body, but they any extra they can get as far as training is certainly beneficial.
Yeah, exactly. And as you know, you do it too, mate. So.
Well, that's exactly right. The thing I was going to ask, just jog my memory again. Here's irony 101 I've observed. So you would say when you were in your teenage years, you weren't at all conducive to teachers and teachers' advice and everything. Do you find the irony now as you've become this teacher and guide and mentor? Are you, like you said, that teacher that said to you, you'll never be a copper, you don't have what it takes, or whatever they said to you? Is a lot of your experience with teachers as a teenager, does that make you think now about the way you interact with young people, going, I'll never be like that, I want to be better than that?
Absolutely, yeah. I don't want to be that. Yeah, just an absolute flog. Dick, no experience or telling you this is the way it has to be done. If you can do it another way, and we get to the same outcome, I don't give a shit. Like, we've talked about this in Thailand with one of the jiu-jitsu get-ups. Well, I can't do that.
Yep.
With all my ailments, so we work on how I get up and you helped me a little bit with that as well. But as long as we get to the desired outcome, we're all going to be different in how we do it, and it shits me to no end. These teachers that just this is the way you have to do it. Like even the ones that Darley's had to deal with at school, and you've gone, fair dinkum, you guys have just got no idea. And instead of owning your own faults and accepting it, blame the student. Well, it's not the student's fault. So
that's it. We're all different, and I think you're one that's definitely using experience as a teacher over and again, study is always very important, but your study of life in general is probably something that's really helping you be a good teacher and a mentor.
Yeah, you there, mate? Frozen again.
We lost him again, I think.
You there?
No, he's frozen up. He's calling. This is actually just... we're back.
No, we're back again, are we?
Yeah, got you back.
Well,
it's all right. We'll chop and change this one a bit. Yeah, I think so.
Are
we back?
We there? No. Yes.
Yeah, I think so. Hey,
we're back again, I think.
We are. How come? See how that's there and there and there and there and there. But that's it. Oh, no, we're back. No, we're fully back now. We're fully back now. All right.
Yeah, probably getting back to the study,
yes.
Definitely study is important, but not everyone can learn out of a textbook. And I was one of those. Like, I'm more get the hands onto it and have a crack. And, yeah, you got to do a bit of reading, but
this is the thing, and to speak about study, we would be finding now more than ever, and I know we've probably discussed this before as well, like kids with learning difficulties, ASD kids, all that stuff that we're both probably having to encounter now in our classes. This is more prevalent than ever because you would be finding now, as I do, one way we articulate it to one kid is completely the wrong way to articulate it to another kid. So we're having to constantly diversify, and the more kids we have that exposure to teaching, the better we get.
Yeah. And I think I'll be learning that till the day I decide to not do it anymore.
And I think it's like, I was talking to a newer instructor about this recently. I said the amount of times that you'll have a great plan in your head, you'll do it, and you'll just completely fuck it, and you'll go, okay, don't do that again. Like, no matter how long you're doing it for, you'll still make mistakes.
Absolutely. I've gone, yep, no, fuck, that worked better in my head than it did on the mat.
Yeah. You walk out and you go, that could have gone better.
I'm not doing that again.
All right. Question 8. You mentioned this earlier. One time you have backed yourself when everything was saying to just give up. Go.
Probably 2022 was my hardest year other than the COVID. I had back-to-back surgeries in that year. So I had my knee operated on in February, which was 6 weeks non-weight bearing. And then I had my right Achilles done in December of that same year of 2022, which was another 6 weeks non-weight bearing as well. So I could have quite easily just said, fuck it. I'll accept that you're getting a bit older and move on. But, you know, last year was sort of the reset year and slowly getting back and getting confidence in the body. And now I've got to get the body back to where it was and lose a few kilos but the Achilles is feeling pretty good. Yeah, it gets sore after training. Your knee gets sore after training, but generally my whole body's sore after training. So, though,
I know.
yeah, that
I
was
know that we've
probably
had.
big.
Yeah, I know we've had this conversation more than once, and it's definitely a focus for me, especially in the last 12 months. Are you now, because both our bodies are, starting to fail us, if not well into failing
Yeah,
us. My big focus at the moment with training, and it has been probably for the last 6 months at least, is looking at the long haul as opposed to just today and then paying for it. We've probably both had a lot of moments with our bodies where we said, she'll be right. And 20 years later, we're paying for it. And I think you probably were like me, especially with your footy and, your younger years, you just went through a phase where you thought your body was just 10 foot tall and bulletproof. Do you feel now, what are you going to change? And second thing, what would your advice be to somebody starting out in martial arts? Because I'm sure you're the same, getting a 17-year-old kid in here to stretch and do mobility and watch what they're eating a little bit more and pay more attention to how much fluid they're taking in and sleep they're getting. I could be talking a different language and it would make more sense. They just don't think it applies to them. But now they're the first things we look at. So what is going to change for you, or what has changed?
from what's going to change from my perspective.
Yeah. How are you going to change your outlook on it all? Because you don't mind getting in there and still going hard and doing that stuff, but again, without telling all about my story, my biggest problem is not my ego. I would call it my letting go of my younger years and just understanding that I'm staring down the barrel of 50 now, and I just maybe can't do 2 sessions a day or train every single day or do a big workout every day. I've just got to look at the quality over the quantity.
Oh, I think that's the same with me as well, but I've still got that ingrown competitiveness to be first. And if I'm not first, I've got to be the best I can be at it. Have I always done that? No. Sometimes I've let myself down. But I think now is just, as you said, just being smarter about how I train. I'm rolling around with dudes that are young enough to be my kids, and I'm thinking, fucking, what am I doing? So I'm just going to be a bit smarter on how I do things. Try and listen to the body a bit more. Believe it or not, I probably still don't do it. Nearly 53, and I'm bloody. But that's something I've probably never done. I've always tried to push on, but I'd like
look
to
at like I said, the 2 jobs, the driving, the pushing on. And that's just another. In this case, it's a curse of sorts, because that's just what we do. But yeah, you're right. You have to listen to that body, and like you said, if you're needing 2 surgeries in 1 year, and I think the biggest thing we battle is our bodies can't keep up with our heads anymore, and we just have to understand that that's just the way it is. And I, totally agree with you from a jiu-jitsu point of view. There's one of the guys in here that's in our fight team. and I'm working out with him. And I put into perspective, when he was born, I'd already been doing jiu-jitsu for 2 years. And when he's on fire, he's a fucking handful. And I just go, that's okay, because, you know, there's going to become a time where I just can't do that anymore. But this works fine.
Yeah, that's right. And just to an extent, accept the submission. You know, yep, you submitted me, you little prick. I'll get you next time, sort of thing. You know, but
well, that's the thing. Like I will always, not always. I think they one thing I read once was about the difference between older and the two main things that older men have compared to younger men or younger people doing jiu-jitsu or doing martial arts. The two things we have that they don't, we have that isometric strength, so that old man strength. But then the other thing we have is wisdom. Like, how much trauma and violence and everything have you lived through and been through that the 17-year-old kid you're rolling with hasn't been through, you know? So there's all this life experience that, like, and again, it's not a competition as such, like you're going to have to kill me to put me away. I've been here before. This doesn't overly faze me. And I guess it's just trying to pass that on.
Yeah, just being humble about it, you know. It's we're just trying to better ourselves, really. So, you know, I can't run anymore. So I used to be quite good at running when I was younger. So now I've got a rower. So I use the rower instead of in running. So that's me probably being a bit smarter, believe it or not.
So you talk about like injuries and everything that's, you know, going on with your body. What is there that, like you said, you can't do anymore? But is there other stuff that you're also trying to do on the back end? Like, are you looking a bit, like you said, you could lose a couple of kegs? Are you looking at cutting, like you said earlier, you're trying to cut down a bit on the whiskey? Is there that sort of back end stuff that you're trying to work on as well? Like, even to the point, like you said, you're trying to be home a little bit more, just lower the stress levels. What's sort of the priorities there?
Yeah, there's that, and I'm sort of looking at the mushrooms and stuff like that now. So, like looking at a mushroom supplement. Pete Smedley touched on it a little bit. Lion's mane and stuff like that. So, yeah, I'm looking at some alternative type of medicines or things to help me. So, and yeah, I need to, and we've always talked about this probably nearly every time I've trained with you, is mobility. I need to keep working on that, and as much as I keep saying I'm doing it, I don't. And that's something that I really need to work on this year and get that going. So I've just got to make time instead of being a fucking pussy about it and making excuses. I've got to get into it.
It's just hard, mate, finding that forming the habit and just regularly doing it without thinking. Saying to a few people, like, you know, this is just making it normal. Yeah. This is just what I do. You know, it's not a big deal. Like, you know, like I said, the things that you do on a day-to-day basis, you know, I would, you know, like I said, students of mine, the concept of them driving 4 hours, you know, a return trip, you know, which is an 8-hour day, to go and train for 2 hours, turn around and come back. Some of my students and a lot of other people would go, I'm not even going to fucking consider that. But to you, that's just normal. You know, this is now you making it part, you know, this is added into part of the normal. But it's hard because when you're, you know, the lifestyle that we've both led, now going, I'm not going to do that anymore. You can't change it overnight.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So just got to keep working.
But you'll get there, mate.
Exactly.
It's all right, mate. Every time in Thailand this year you go to have a singer, I'll say, stop, I'll take that for you and I'll get you a tonic water or something instead. No? No?
No, probably won't go that far.
I'm on holidays, man. All right.
That's right.
Number 9. 3 pieces of advice to people who are finding reasons not to back themselves to instead back themselves. What wisdom could you impart, Matthew?
Well, Kyle, I think number 1 is just keep moving forward. We learn from our mistakes most of the time, so don't beat yourself up about it. Just keep moving forward. Definitely. Number 2, don't be afraid to ask or seek help if you need it. And that probably comes as getting a bit older, that you decide that that's what you need, but we need to do that. And then number 3, you're in control of your own destiny. So don't make excuses. You know, I've already said I've made a couple of excuses on this podcast about not doing mobility and all that sort of shit. Well, there's only one person that's going to change it, and that's me. So you got to grab the bull by the horns and be in control of your own destiny.
Do you find that these pieces of advice are pieces of advice you need to keep giving yourself?
Yep, definitely. Absolutely.
Which is the one that you need to keep giving yourself the most?
Wake up and go, yeah, okay, life's. I think probably that I am in control of my own destiny, but then it's probably the second one, like, is don't be afraid to ask for help if I need it. You know.
Yep.
The other bit, keep moving forward. Well, I do that, so that's not a problem. Yeah, it's you know, the keep moving forward part. When I did the Green Mile with the kinetic fighting, like, I found mentally I was fine. Yeah. After 36 hours, probably 4 hours sleep, I was still pretty good. My body was feeling a bit rooted, but mentally, I just I reckon I could have kept going a bit longer. There's no doubt they would have broken me. But it wasn't about breaking us. It was about just testing what we know under pressure, and through physical exertion, sleep deprivation, asking her on the fly stuff, and you had to answer it straight away, or time limits on setting up a bunk bed, stuff like that. Like, it was all just putting us under pressure, and I loved it.
Yeah,
I really did. Yeah.
Do you find that you enjoy that pressure then?
Yeah, I do. I do enjoy the pressure, but yeah, I think you've just got to, if you need help, ask for it. Simple. Yeah, and that might be the hardest thing for us males to do.
Oh, look, and that was what I was just about to say, but probably more so, like, you've grown up in a lot of regional Victoria country towns. Is that something you've encountered in other grown men in your area, or grown men that you even tried to teach, that concept of taking advice or of them asking for that help? Is it something that you see? And again, maybe sometimes people don't ask for help until it's too late, but is it something that, you try and pass on to people your age, that it is okay to do that? It doesn't make you any weaker. It doesn't, you're no less of a person.
Yeah, I probably don't. don't harp on it, but if I see somebody that might be struggling, I'll ask if they're all right, and
Yeah.
there might be anything that I can actually do for you, but there's nothing wrong with seeing a psychologist or something just to make you aware of what's actually happening. I can't identify for you what's wrong. I'm not a friggin' into that sort of stuff, but I'll definitely help where I can. Yeah.
The fact that you're just there and offering, mate, that means so much to some people, doesn't it? And that's part of the role in us as instructors. Sure. We become that sounding board for a lot of people, don't we?
Yeah, definitely.
It's part of the job.
We probably don't realise how important we are to our students.
No, we don't. And we take our we probably don't take our role seriously enough all the time. We don't understand how much of a big picture role it is. And that's probably one thing that we both see a lot of younger instructors do. They just don't realise how much of an impact they can have on a person's life by just being them.
Yeah. Yeah, and they impact us too. Like, I really.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think it'd impact me the way it has when I first started teaching full time.
Yeah.
Just getting a little Christmas card or something from them, or they give you a gift.
The little things, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just go, holy shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It rolls you. All right, question 10, final question. A quote to live by.
Oh, well, I've got a few. I'm going to say sit loose in the saddle. Yeah. Just not too loose that you're going to fall out of it, but, sit loose in the saddle.
Sit loose in the saddle. I like it.
Yeah.
So what are you trying to pass on
that you're going to fall out of it?
And has that come from you? Like you said, COVID was probably a big lesson for you. Moving back to Horsham was a big thing for you. Having to adapt. So you've probably sat loose in the saddle the greater majority of your life.
Probably not always. My dad the old man, he always used to say, sit loose in the saddle, but, and I just probably continue to say it, but I used to and I was again in those younger years, I probably like early 20s and that I used to let shit get to me a bit. And, it's probably as I've got older, I don't necessarily care what people think too much anymore. Not being, not saying that I know everything, but I don't, if you think I'm doing the wrong thing in the way I'm doing something, well, so be it. But as long as I'm not hurting anyone, mind your own business sort of thing. I don't,
well, that's it, isn't it?
Facebook and all this sort of shit.
And sometimes people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones, should they?
Exactly. Well, there's ramifications for some of the shit you say and that. So, well, it used to be back in the day. I am a bit fearful for generations to come because they just haven't had that resilience or exposure to be resilient. So, I'm a bit worried about them.
No, I often say
that's why
the
we
word
need
resilience. Yeah, the word resilience maybe won't exist in our dictionary in a couple of generations' time. And that's something we've got to work very hard to just try and delay as long as we can.
Yeah. So anyway,
But
I try
I
not to
like,
get stressed more, mate.
yeah, I know I need to work on that. That's for sure. But I really, really like that quote. I really like that quote. That's good. That's really good. Well, I guess after after a couple of attempts, um, for those who have listened, we have had a little bit of technical difficulty during this recording, but we got there, and I'm really glad we did. So, I just want to say to those that are finishing off, I really, really respect Matt for what he has done and achieved. And I totally empathize with the stage he is in with his club, where he's still juggling those two jobs, a family, his own training, and all the traveling that's involved as well. Mate, I think if a lot of instructors could just do half of what you manage to fit in, they'd probably astound themselves as to how much they get done. So, mate, congratulations for what you've achieved so far. I hope you really move forward in 2024. Sounds like you're a bit fired up, a little bit scared, but also fired up. But I think, mate, I look forward to sharing a cool beverage with you in Thailand, if not sooner.
Definitely, mate. Looking forward to the Thailand trip, and always good to catch up and have a chat for sure. So,
Will be, mate. We'll solve some more of life's difficulties.
Be on this podcast.
Mate, it's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure, and I'm sure everyone would agree. You're not you're not as unspecial as you thought. You got a little bit of stuff there. You're doing okay. You're doing okay. And on that note,
thank you very much.
We will put in the notes, all the links to Matt's stuff at Hammer. And if you like this podcast, listen to others, and you can share and you can do all that stuff. And I looked over at Madison when I wasn't meant to. We're learning. There's a lot of stuff that we're getting our heads around. So thank you for listening. Thank you to Matt, and we will see you on the next one. Bye. Thank you for listening to the Kyl Reber podcast, and thank you for taking the time to listen to another amazing person that is doing amazing things, that is just like you and I, and like you, is capable of greatness. So make sure that you listen to this, take away something from it, and use that to inspire you to back yourself and become something that you could have never dreamed you're possible of becoming. Please make sure you listen to future episodes. Please make sure you follow, like, and share all our channels, because let's get the word out that everybody, everywhere, no matter who they are, is capable of doing some pretty amazing things. Thank you again for listening, and we'll see you on the next one. My name's Kyl Reber. See you soon.